Today we're going to give you a bit of an update on what is growing on in the garden, or more accurately in our seed trays and pots up on the deck and the potting shed. It's been a while, so we thought we'd just give you a few updates and share a few things that we have learned and discovered along the way. And unfortunately, it's not all good news. You look disappointed.
I think that's an understatement. So this is the first year that we've intentionally tried to grow from seed, because normally we just go to the garden centre and buy the plugs and stick them in. And it also means that we could do it kind of last minute. We could decide, oh, tomorrow we could plant some lettuce, and we can just go and buy the lettuce plugs and chuck them in. And last year we tried to grow loads of different varieties of tomatoes, and they didn't go very well, so we ended up going to the garden centre anyway.
Some of them did work though.
Some did work, but the germination rate was low, and again this year it's low. But I did a whole plan of what we wanted to grow and how much we wanted to grow, and things just haven't gone to plan. And what I have learned is I need to learn a bit more. But what's funny is just recently we watched a whole load of gardening videos on YouTube that we've seen before, that we watched like last year or the year before. But until you make some mistakes or run into the problems, you don't hear the information that's being told to you. I mean, we've been watching woodworking videos for years. Doesn't mean I can do any woodworking. This year, because we've been doing it intentionally, we've been recording what we're doing, when things don't go to plan, you're kind of like, oh, what's wrong? And we have a couple of theories on what's wrong, but let's just walk you around what has happened, and then hopefully we can explain some of the theoretical ideas that we have of why things have gone the way that they have. So this is disappointment zone number 1. So this is all, not all, but most of the stuff that we seeded in February. And these are the tomato plants, the first tomato plants that germinated. And I potted them all on and buried them really deep. And they have grown up, and they're quite, well, that leaf just fell off. The stalks are quite strong, and I imagine the roots are okay, but they've kind of halted and haven't grown on very much. And they've had a little bit, they've been eaten out here as well.
They just look a bit sad.
They don't look healthy at all. I also was like, when these started to go like this, I thought, oh, maybe they need bigger pots with more nutrients in them. So I put them into bigger pots. It hasn't made a difference. Compared to the same lot of seeds, though I did reseed some of them, is this tray. Some of them will be from the original seed, and some will be when I reseeded 2 weeks later after those ones are germinated. So some of them look really healthy in the top, but they're still, you would expect, you know, we're talking about February germination. It's now May. You would expect a much bigger plant.
Or I would at least, but
yeah,
maybe we just have unrealistic expectations.
Maybe, but this is a pumpkin plant, a curry. And it's got lots of dry leaves that are falling off. Just doesn't look very healthy. Same with this guy. But there is also a couple of melons and some cucumbers. An eggplant. They do need watering. I haven't watered them today. But yeah, they're all a little bit underwhelming.
This one is very sad.
Oh, these ones. These are some cucumbers that I planted on just recently that were looking pretty sad, and I thought I'll see if I could save them. But the answer there is no. So when this happened and I started to see that this is not right, and there's a number of factors that I think could play into this, which I'll discuss in a moment. I did some more seeding, and I think we've done 2 more seedings after that, and I'll show you what the healthier plants look like. So these 3 trays were done much later, in March I think it was. Hit and miss for germination, but where they have come up, they're much healthier. These are some flowers. This is all spinach. None of our spring onions germinated. Not very much of our greens germinated. And so then, subsequent to that, I was suspecting the compost. So I was like, let's go and get another brand of compost and do a side-by-side compost experiment. And that's what these two trays are. So I seeded exactly the same thing in the two trays. This is the new compost that we're testing. This is a mix of a couple of different things that we use.
That we did everything previously in.
This has germinated more, but these are healthier looking. And this particular compost, it's been out we left it out and it's been raining because we had some things germinated and I wanted the light, some things hadn't germinated. So I left it out for the sunlight and then the rain. So I think the ones that haven't germinated have now got too much water in them. But yeah, there's a real difference between, if you can zoom in on these little guys, which are a lettuce, and then these little guys. And I've done exactly the same thing with these two trays. Every time I bring them out, they're together. They're on the heat mats together. They're under the lights together. These got a little bit leggy under the lights. And then I started bringing them outside. These didn't for some reason. And they all popped up at the same time, but these are much bigger leaves. So this one and this one look not too dissimilar in size and health. And this is still popping up. So this is a small tomato plant. It popped up over the weekend. And then I did, because this I was like, oh, I'm not so sure. I did another tray. No, I did this before this compost experiment, sorry. And this has had much better success. But again, still really patchy germination rate.
So for all of these seeds that we've sown, it's been done in the same way, in the potting shed, on heat mats and under grow lights, although they're just normal LED lights. And we were hoping to get a bit of a jump start on the season, get things bigger and healthier and ready to go in the ground sooner so that we could elongate the growing season. But we're not entirely sure what. It may be one thing, or it is more likely to be a combination of many things, that hasn't really happened.
So there's a whole list of things that I think we need to spend some more time learning about and experimenting with. But I'll start with something that we definitely know is an issue, which is the lights that we have are sufficient, but they're trying to do too big of an area. So they have the right Kelvin and watts and whatever, but they're such a big area that then the dilution or the light gets diffused too much. And we saw another video recently of someone with lights that they're growing under. We were never trying to grow too much under them. But yeah, so the lights are definitely an issue. They're not bright enough. We saw a lot of legginess. And we always said from the beginning, oh, I don't know if these lights are bright enough. We looked for these LED strip lights, which are much more intensive, and we couldn't find any. So that is something I will definitely fix for next year. Or we will try and get some kind of a greenhouse situation where we don't need grow lights. We just didn't have time this year, but maybe for next season we will. So that's number one. I think the heat mats worked really well. And I would definitely use them again, and they are fine for this. But one of the reasons that we were using the heat mats is because February, when we were starting sowing, is not that warm here in Portugal. And we had a horrible, wet, grey February and March. And then we had some really hot weeks. Like there was a week of like 24, 26 degrees. And then the following week was like back to 13. That also didn't help. So the nighttime temperatures were fluctuating all over the place. There was a lot of rain outside, so we couldn't put the seedlings out to get the natural sunlight. That would all be resolved if there was a greenhouse or some other kind of controlled environment that had enough light. So that was a big one. And then also tied into that, it's because the temperature was fluctuating so much, I don't think I got the watering right. So I think I was either overwatering when it was cold and underwatering when it was hot. I recently started using a soil moistness tester. That has really helped. But yeah, I need to learn a little bit more about watering.
And alongside all of this, we're now starting to question everything. So we started questioning the compost. Maybe the compost hasn't got enough nutrients in it. And the other thing we've been questioning is the seeds. Now, we don't know if this is the case with either of these things, But we've had really patchy germination over multiple years with the seeds that we've been using. And we're inclined to think that it's not actually bad quality seeds or a bad quality seed company, but chances are we haven't been storing them properly, because some of the seeds that we've had for a while, maybe a few months, maybe a couple of years in some cases, and they've been stored either in a burning hot tent here in the summer or in the kitchen shed at various temperatures and moisture levels. And so we may have killed off some of our seeds by exposing them to less than ideal storage conditions. Again, this is just a theory. We don't know if this is true, but it is potentially plausible. So we're going to do some testing with that as well in the future. And something that I've heard, and I don't know if I can back this up with any source or anything, but I've heard that organic seeds, which are the ones that we buy as much as possible, I believe they have slightly lower germination rates anyway. Maybe one of you lovely people can correct me if I'm wrong. Hopefully we don't get people say yes you're right and people say yes you're wrong, although that does happen a lot. But maybe someone who knows more than us can let us know if there is any truth in that whatsoever.
And the last issue, which I think is one that comes with experience and a lot more planning and experimentation.
Do you mean lack of experience?
Yes, lack of experience. Is I think we tried to do the wrong things too early. So I think we were doing, peppers and tomatoes and melons in February. I just think it's way too early because the outside conditions wouldn't be ready for it until May anyway. So that's definitely something that we will do a little bit more work on. And we've just ordered a load of other like microgreens and other bits and pieces so that through the rest of the summer, I can start experimenting and learning about, is it our compost, is it the watering, all those other things, so that maybe by next year we've lowered or reduced the number of factors so that we can then concentrate on, okay, what do we sow when, so that we've got the right amount of time before the outside ground temperature is ready. So much to learn.
So I might be sounding like a broken record, but we go on about this all the time because it seems to happen to us all the time, which is we can read all the books and watch all the videos and listen to all the podcasts and even talk to people in our local-ish area about what to do and how to do it and when to do it. But there is just so much to learn by doing it and getting the experience, making the mistakes, and then being able to learn from them that is just so important. And the context in particular is so different, even in a local area around here. We've got friends who live less than a 10-minute drive away, and they have a different planting time to us for certain things. And they can't grow oranges because they're in a valley or they get too many frosts, or I can't remember exactly what it is. But even within a very short distance, a few kilometers, the microclimates here in particular are hugely different, which can make it very difficult.
So that's enough of that. We've got some learning to do. But let's show you some of the other things that have not appeared on another video that we've been doing alongside all of this disappointment.
Yeah, because it's not all bad.
We're learning, and you've got to do this to learn.
Exactly.
But I would say we have a little bit more disappointment here.
Oh, hang on, I need to get out of the shadow.
Yeah, okay.
Let's go this way. Yeah, perfect.
So all along here is all things that are non-vegetable. So these are flowers, these two big pots. This is the second or third year I've tried to grow asters. I think they're called, what else are they called? Like cornflower blues or something. I don't know that this is actually a germination. I think that's a weed. These are some cosmos from some friends who gave us some seeds from their cosmos from last year. And then a handful of zinnias have come up and something else that hasn't come up. These four, if you were watching when we did the heat pump install, we cleaned out the front garden, and this is the dahlia that we saved that is now coming up.
There's actually two of them there.
There's
two at
two
the back.
there. There's one here. This also has a one that hadn't started to sprout, or could be this one. We had another friend who gave us some bulbs. Again, the only thing that could be planted now was some dahlias and one other, which might be what that is. and a load of other bulbs for the autumn, which I will also plant. These, I'm waiting for them. These had already sprouted, so these are a little bit ahead. Some white cows is how it translates. Oh, these have not done well with the sun recently, or the insane amount of rain that we had on the weekend. And then I have 6 bananas. They got a little bit of frost damage, so I cut them all back. They will pop up again. They really need to be in the ground, but at the moment we're not ready for them to go in the ground, so I keep just transplanting them every year in the hope that one year we'll be able to plant them in the ground. Flowers, flowers, flowers. Chamomile also hasn't germinated, same last year. Again, it could be this seed problem. I've stored them in the tent. Lots of lavender here, though I think some of these are weeds. Some comfrey. This is some radish from the first lot of seeding that we did. These had almost died in the trays, and I thought, you know what, I'll just chuck them in the ground. But I chucked them in a pot. I mean, this one's trying to go to seed already. I was surprised that they grew in a pot, so, you know, bonus. More. And then we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tubs of potatoes, vole-proofed, because they're in containers, and they were left over. They're doing okay.
And just to compare the container potatoes that we're doing, which we sowed fairly recently, like just a couple of weeks, I'll quickly chuck in a shot of how the ones down in the garden are doing, the no-dig potatoes that we planted back in March, maybe?
March.
They are looking excellent, although we probably need to mound them up a bit. Although I've also heard that you don't need to do that. So again, lovely people, come to my rescue. Do we need to mound the potatoes or not? Let us know in the comments.
And while I was down in the garden, I thought I'd give you a quick update on the carrots and parsnips we sowed. The carrots have germinated, the parsnips haven't, but we've also interplanted or intersowed some radish and some spinach.
One last thing that we've got going on here on the deck is also quite exciting. We recently took a trip down towards Tamar to an organic blueberry farm run by a Welshman. And we went down there to check them out. They're doing a pick your own service, pick your own blueberries in the summer, but they're also selling mature blueberry plants in containers. And so we went down to have a look at them and see how many we could fit in the Mini.
So this was one of those really weird, coincidental type things. Kylie was scrolling through Facebook one afternoon and saw somebody advertising that they had blueberry bushes for sale. And she loves blueberries, so got very excited, and got even more excited when she found out that they were only about an hour's drive away. And so even though we're not really ready to plant blueberries, because they were in containers, we thought we'd go down and have a look. And we met a very nice man with a very cool quad bike who helped us pick some plants, put them in the back of his trailer, and load them into our car.
So surprisingly, you can fit 4 blueberry bushes into a Mini Countryman. So this is probably the most exciting addition to our growing setup, for me anyway. I love blueberries. We've been wanting to have berries and plant berries, but we can't because we don't have the water in and stuff. So it is awesome to see see them on the farm where we picked them up, but to see how successfully they were growing, and then to bring some home for ourselves. They're going to become my new little babies. Look at these.
So there's 3 different varieties here. We've got one called Chandler, which is the larger berry. Apparently they get nice and sweet. There's another one called Liberty, which is a very small berry, which is a little bit later ripening and a little bit more sour. And then we've got 2 other ones. The name currently escapes me, but maybe it will appear here on the screen.
So these buckets have just been out in the field. There's loads of weeds in them that we need to go and take out, and then we're going to put some mulch on top, so some of the pine bark mulch, and then we're just going to very quickly take off all the dead bits, and then we'll do a proper prune of them in the dormant season, so in the autumn time, because they haven't been pruned for quite some years. They're about 10 years old, and we're hoping that we will get an opportunity to put them into the ground in the autumn as well, subject to all other projects going on time.
Yeah, so next autumn. Yeah, and the eventual plan for these blueberries and many other varieties of berries, things like raspberries, blackberries, any other kind of berries that we can find, apart from strawberries, because we've already planted some of those, they're all going to go down into a small berry farm in our grey water harvesting area down near the septic tank. So we've got all sorts of interesting plans for these, but we're not quite ready for it yet. Anyway, we just wanted to give you a quick update on all the gardening things. If you have any tips or questions or advice or anything else, please do leave a comment and let us know. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.